You ever have one of those moments when the world just sort of tilts sideways and you realize all that stuff you thought could never happen to you? All those stories you rolled your eyes at on the news, suddenly, they're staring you dead in the face? Yeah, that was me, standing in my own living room, sweat prickling my neck, as some wannabe cop with a badge that looked like it came from a cereal box screamed, "Why is there a black man in our neighborhood? Get out of this house immediately." And you know what? He didn't even have a warrant, just hate in his eyes and the kind of confidence that comes from thinking nobody's ever going to call your bluff. Let me back up a sec. This was supposed to be my fresh start. After the divorce, I'd bought a little lakeside cabin, figured it was time for some peace and quiet, a place where my daughter Emma could actually sleep through the night without sirens in the distance, where I could leave the past behind and just be. But life's got a sense of humor, you know what I mean? That Tuesday evening, the air smelled like rain, Emma was upstairs humming through her math homework, and I was buried in blueprints. I still freelance, keeps the brain sharp. Then came this pounding, not knocking, pounding on the door. The kind that makes you think, either it's the end of the world, or I'm about to meet the worst kind of neighbor. 3 guys in what looked like police uniforms, but something was off. Too cocky, too casual. Shoes all wrong, gear mismatched, not a radio or body cam in sight. Hell, one of them was wearing Nikes with his fake badge. But the lead guy? He steps up, breath smelling like a dive bar at last call, and gets in my face. "We're HOA security enforcement. We've had complaints about your presence. You need to vacate immediately." And just like that, the switch in my head flipped. Years in the military teach you a thing or two about reading people, about standing your ground. I asked for ID, for a warrant, for anything real. The guy just fumbled at his belt, getting red in the face, clearly not used to being questioned. Now here's where it got real weird. He started rattling off things about my routine. My routine. Knew what kind of coffee I drank, what time I jogged, even Emma's school schedule. That's when my stomach dropped. Somebody's been watching us. Not just neighborhood gossip, real surveillance. Who? Why? My head was spinning, running scenarios, none of them good. And then, in the middle of this standoff, Emma peeks down from the stairs, holding her phone, smart kid, always recording, and says, "Dad, should I call Mom?" You should have seen the look on those guys' faces. Suddenly, they weren't so sure of themselves. But then, from outside, engines start roaring. Not just one, a whole convoy, lights flashing blue and red, and the street fills with real law enforcement. SWAT. Neighbors pressed up against their windows. The whole block frozen. The front door bursts open, tactical gear everywhere, and the last person I expected steps through the smoke. My ex-wife, Linda, leading the team. God, the universe has jokes, doesn't it? She's still got that command voice, tells me to stand back, and within seconds, the fakes are zip-tied, their bravado evaporating faster than cheap whiskey. Been monitoring HOA complaints in the area for months. Linda tells me, "Calm as you please," while her team sweeps the house. Finds listening devices, floor plans, even pictures of Emma at school. All of it, evidence of a months-long campaign against anyone the HOA didn't like the look of, especially families who didn't fit in. This isn't just me. It's a pattern, a system. And she'd been watching, even after our split, protecting us the only way she knew how. Turns out, this neighborhood had a little secret. Or, more accurately, a giant, festering cancer at the heart of its so-called community. The HOA, run by Patricia Lockridge. You know the type. Pressed suit, ice blue eyes, smiles for the church newsletter, but knives for anyone who doesn't meet her standards, had been systematically driving out Black, Latino, and undesirable families. First came fake code violations, then legal threats, then full-on impersonation of law enforcement. And after the Johnsons, a family I barely knew, but who'd vanished overnight, leaving everything behind, I started seeing it for what it was, a machine. Ruthless, well-oiled, and designed to chew people up and spit them out. But I got lucky. I had Linda. And when we checked the Johnson house that night, empty, dark, abandoned in such a hurry that children's toys were still scattered on the floor, the horror really sank in. Our neighbor, Mr. Martinez, a soft-spoken landscaper who'd heard everything from his clippers and rakes, finally came forward. Secret HOA meetings, talk about protecting the neighborhood's character, city officials in their pockets, property values as the cover for outright bigotry. But the kicker? Patricia was working hand in glove with a company called Pinnacle Properties, snapping up homes for pennies on the dollar. All cash, no questions, right after families ran for their lives. The next day, the threats got legal. Lawsuit for $500,000, doctored photos, fake affidavits, all signed off by a judge who, surprise, had his campaign funded by Pinnacle. They were going to bleed me dry, or at least try to. But Linda, man, I never appreciated her research skills until then. Dug up everything. Campaign contributions, emails, even a flowchart showing how the bribes filtered through the council. If you ever think the system's not rigged, buddy, you haven't seen how deep those roots can go. But the real gut punch came from the Johnsons themselves. We found them living out of a motel, terrified. Their little girl Sarah too scared to walk to school alone. They said bad things would happen if we didn't leave, she whispered to Emma, and I swear, watching my daughter comfort her friend while realizing just how close we'd come to being next, that does something to you. Linda pulled strings, brought in federal prosecutors, and soon, whistleblowers started surfacing. A guy named Michael Thompson, former property scout for Pinnacle, came forward. Told us about Operation Clean Slate, the grand plan to empty the whole neighborhood, bulldoze it, and build a luxury resort. Ethnic cleansing, disguised as urban renewal. Millions in profit, dozens of lives ruined, and nobody blinking an eye until now. Patricia? She played the long game. Showed up at my door, offered to let me leave with my dignity if I dropped the accusations. I laughed in her face. Next morning in court, her high-priced lawyer ran circles around my court-appointed one for a while. But then Emma, my 12-year-old, stood up under oath and asked the question that broke Patricia's composure for the first time. How did those men know my dad's morning routine? She couldn't answer, and that's when everything shifted. Just when it looked like we might actually pull this off, the unthinkable happened. For children, including Sarah, vanished on their way home from school. Patricia's insurance policy. You want silence? Threaten what people love most. But my daughter, stubborn, brave, too damn much like her old man, remembered the storm drains near the warehouse district. Gave Linda the key, and in the dead of night, the FBI moved in. It was chaos, explosions, SWAT teams, sirens, kids crying, but every child was rescued. Patricia and her goons went down in cuffs, and her empire went up in smoke, quite literally. After that, everything moved fast. Federal indictments, asset seizures, public apologies from every councilman who'd looked the other way. Families came forward, told their stories, and, for once, people listened. Emma, my little girl, got up at the town hall, voice shaking but clear, and told them, "Bullies only win when we're too scared to fight back." There wasn't a dry eye in the place. Patricia and her brother got decades in prison. The Johnsons bought a new house, started over. Martinez finally opened his own landscaping business. The HOA was rebuilt from the ground up, with transparency, diversity, and oversight. Emma even got to serve on the youth advisory board, making sure no other kid ever went through what she did. Linda and I, well, let's just say sometimes the worst brings out the best. We learned to work together again, for Emma, for our neighbors, maybe even for us. And that lakeside cabin? Still ours. Still standing. So, yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you ever find yourself thinking that could never happen here, don't be so sure. The line between neighborly and nightmare is a lot thinner than you think. But if you stand up, find your people, refuse to let fear run the show, justice has a way of coming around, sooner or later. You just gotta be willing to fight for it. Anyway, that's my story. Maybe it's your story too. Drop a comment below, where you're watching from, what you'd have done in my shoes, or if you've ever tangled with a power-hungry HOA. Justice isn't a given, it's a fight. So, what do you think? Did we get it right? Or is the system still broken? Let's hear it.